Preparing. All right, looks like we're live. Thanks everyone for joining this week's OpenJS Foundation Cross-Project Council meeting. Today is the 28th of January. And do we have any announcements that we'd like to share before we get into things?
Just a couple of things. We have additionally today the Collab Summit planning meeting, which will be immediately following this CPC meeting. It's a half hour. So please join if you're interested in participating in that either today or just in an ongoing basis. Related, we're collecting feedback still, obviously from past versions of the summit, and also feedback on different ideas we could employ for the next summit. For example, doing individual summits or by project, or having project tracks. That was a research question that we put out to some projects. So if you have thoughts or ideas that you want to share, we would warmly welcome them in the Summit Slack channel, or you can email me or Rachel or Robin, or of course join the meeting. And then a reminder that our next AMA will be for jQuery with Timmy and Dave on the 5th of February. So please help us spread the word and tell your friends to that they need jQuery and that they need to attend this AMA.
Cool. I have a couple of calendar related questions. Number one, how does one get on the Collab Summit meeting invites? I feel like I had one and maybe I deleted it because I thought it was expired or something, or changed.
Yeah, great question. So unfortunately that was set up originally as a Google Calendar Hangout event, which I think we will try and get that addressed today, to instead of doing it that way, putting it on our public OpenJS calendar with a OpenJS Zoom link. I'm gonna drop in our Zoom chat really quick a link to that Hangout for those who would like to join today.
Great, and that's immediately following this meeting for a half hour, is that accurate?
That's right.
Okay. I also see that the standards team meeting is today in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I will try to make that meeting. And then the other calendar related question I have is, it looks like the AMA is perhaps not on the public calendar either. So maybe that's something we can update as well. Is it something we decided we should have out there on the public calendar?
I think so, and we'll definitely work to get all of these items and more on our public calendar.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you for all of that, Jory. What about board meeting updates? Should we dive into that before we get into the agenda?
We had the board meeting last Friday. We did talk about the travel fund, so that's one of the issues on our agenda later on. The budget was approved, as well as the statement was made in terms of like if the travel fund is much more successful and the funds need to be expanded, there's a statement basically saying that that would likely happen. Trying to think what else particular. I'm just going to open up the board that we have to see if there's anything else on there that was okay. Sorry, I'm just doing that. The post-graduation checklist, we didn't get that updated in time, so I didn't bring that up, and that's the only other thing on the board. So I think that's the board update.
Cool. Great. Thank you, Michael. Anything else before we get into the agenda here? No. All right. I'm looking here at the. I'm trying to see if I can identify anything that is, would be of interest to Toby, since he's only here for the first half of the meeting. The first thing that comes to mind is the communication channel between CPC and AMP Infrastructure Working Group, which is the last item on the agenda. Maybe we should just touch on that first to make sure that we don't that we get to it. If there are no objections. This is project onboarding issue 31, which I will drop in the Slack. And thanks, Rachel, for confirming the AMA can totally go on the public calendar. So yeah, this is issue 31, communication channel between Cross-Project Council and AMP Infrastructure Working Group. I think that we had like some things spun up, perhaps a mailing list, but the Slack channel was another one. Toby, do you think that this is something that we need to stay on top of, or there are action items we should be aware of?
I think we can close this.
Okay.
I think we made sufficient progress at the Collab Summit for people to actually meet and feel comfortable that we're going in the right direction. And I think we have issues as, points to structural conversation. So I think we're good. And I think we had those set up by Brian, and I don't know that they're actually being used that much. So, I mean, I think regardless, we can close this.
Okay. I'm just making a quick note based on what you just said.
And I can confirm that there is a Groups IO mailing list for this as well. So maybe we can just pop a link to that mailing list before we close the issue.
Do you have it and can you share it?
Yes, I do. I sure do.
Yeah, if you drop it into the
Thank you.
chat, I'll just drop it into the message I have here and I can close it.
All right. Chat. There you go.
And the other update I can give you is on 411 around the copyright guidelines, IP guidelines. I think it's 411.
All right, cool. I closed that last one, and then let's jump into.
Oh no, sorry, it's 414, not 411.
Okay, great. So I will open that one up. And yeah, if you want to give us some context and an update,
yeah,
that'd be
this
great.
is just about the copyright guidelines. Brian and I met last week, got some action items listed, and we'll be continuing to work on that, and we'll have something to share, not next meeting, but the one after that, because there was FOSDEM over the weekend, and so I don't expect to get much time to do anything. So this is moving forward, and I think we'd have something consistent concrete, sorry, and sort of like more polished to share with you in 2 weeks.
Okay, great. It looks like Matteo has left a couple of comments, and you were in there 5 hours ago as well.
Yeah, I saw those. I didn't have time to look into them yet.
Okay, yeah, Brian, I think commented too. And so, all right, great. So this is stuff happening here, and
Yes.
we'll see how things pan out over the next couple weeks. Thank you. All right. And a reminder for anyone who can drop in some notes into the Google Doc, that'd be awesome. And even Toby, if you want to drop in and just add a little bit to 414, that'd be great. In the doc itself.
I'll do that.
There's the doc in the chat for ease of use. Cool. All right. Well, then we'll now just kind of jump into the agenda items here. and work our way through. The first one here is Cross Project Council issue 445. This is where shall certain resources live. You know, we kind of bike shedded on this a little bit, and I'm not sure we really left with anything other than like, let's think of perhaps a repo that we should have that we would drop all sorts of things such as infrastructure, menu of services, and slide deck about marketing services and other things that we would think would be beneficial to our projects. Does anybody have anything to add on this or thoughts?
So my recollection after the last meeting was that we should continue the conversation on the GitHub issue because we were just sort of, as you say, like bike shedding on it a bit. There hasn't been any further bike shedding on the issue since we bike shedded in person. And so that sort of leads me to believe that nobody at this point is experiencing this problem strongly enough, you know, that they're like, oh my gosh, I have the ideal solution and it is X. What I would like to do just to move forward is to simply create a resources directory in one of our existing repos with an index for what some of these files are, and just call that good enough for now and move on. Does that sound reasonable to everyone? So we're not introducing other like places to lose track of things.
Yeah, that's a +1 for me. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too.
Okay, great. I'll take that action item to do that then.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. And then we can close that one out and revisit it later if we decide that we need something more. Cool. So the next item on the agenda here is the pull request 441. This is finalized travel fund process, and this is something we need to get over the finish line as we already have travel requests coming in and moving forward. We've got a bunch of thumbs on here. It looks like Emily made a couple of comments, but with an approval. And then there's a related issue 377. Do you want to add any context here, Emily? I think you're on the call, right?
Yeah, I'm here. Basically the questions I had in 377 are effectively answered by us merging this, and the comments I left are just comments. They may lead to something being clarified if the answer is that something should be clarified, but they should not be blockers or for anything. I approve this message.
Great. And Michael, you can confirm for us that the board has issued a statement, and I think that's some folks who have commented here, like James Snell, are on board, and that perhaps we can move this forward. Yeah.
Yes, I mean. One previous objection was removed based on the suggestions discussion, and I followed up with James in the issue. He seems okay with landing it. I took the action that once we land it, we'll submit a new PR, which would further update it to open the possibility for projects to request the budget they can manage themselves. But I think unless there's any objections here, we should probably just land this, and at least this lets us start to manage a travel fund if there's requests while we do the rest of any other updates.
Okay, and to be clear, this is a proposal that would, this PR is to move it to stage 3, and then we would need to get board approval still, or what's the process?
I believe this actually brings everything to the the member travel fund actually lands in the repo. So I think it's not just in the proposal, but taking what was in the proposal and puts it into our repo.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, so basically, yes. So I think we land this and we now have a working travel fund is my understanding.
Okay.
So I basically say, unless there's any objections, I don't think we need a board approval. Like this isn't changing the governance or anything like that. It's
I think it was already approved by the board, and not this meeting, the previous meeting, if I recall correctly. And then there is this PR changed the operation of the funds so that we are doing. So when this lands, it will be on us to approve the travel fund requests. So we need to land an equivalent PR that actually removes things from admin, from Node.js admin.
Okay.
Right. I could, yeah, something that maybe says, you know, the node fund no longer exists. Go look over there, right?
Yeah. Essentially, yes. Essentially, yes. So
okay.
It needs when this lands, as soon as this lands, we need a matching PR on the other side. So that
okay. Is that something you can do?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So because I guess what I'd suggest is like I'll land this as soon later today, unless there's any objections. From
yeah,
people.
I'll do it tomorrow though. I'm at the end of my day.
Yep. Yeah. I think that works. And then I'll have the action to create another PR to say, you know, if your project want to request a fund, you know, I don't think it'll be a lot of words, but basically say you can do that, and then we'll see who requests one.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
From an operations perspective, should we do anything on our side to prepare for the requests, or we just manage them as they get in?
Are you talking about the cross-project council or on the
no
side?
the travel fund request?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a bit the same in that the approvers are the cross-project council. So
yes, exactly. Like but yeah, there is quite a little bit question marks on what do we do. There is Miles. Oh, okay. What do we do if a project that somebody's requiring access from a project that is not directly represented in the CPC, and that is, you know, so there's a little bit of thing. I will open an issue anyway. So
yeah,
Mateo, my understanding is that has happened before, and that in general, you know, when someone is requesting funds from a particular project, there should be, I guess, like verification from that project leadership is one way of handling that, but perhaps we need process around that.
Yeah, I'll open an issue. We might not, but or we can just play by ear essentially. But I'll open an issue to track. So
it doesn't hurt to discuss that.
If that does happen, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity to make sure that said project does get representation in the CPC.
Yeah, that will be probably my take, but yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Great.
Okay.
All right, excellent. That's great progress. Thanks everyone for pushing forward on that. Cool. So moving on to the next issue, another big one here is the starting a code of conduct team. Now, I know we've touched on this the last couple meetings. We have the HackMD file that lays out, you know, our purpose, our scope of work, people who have raised their hands. If anybody's interested, check that file. What are the next steps here for moving forward?
I guess the only concern is in terms of participants, there haven't been a huge number of people put up their hands.
Mm-hmm. We have 5.
I would like to join this team. How should I go about doing so?
Great. In the issue, there is a link to the HackMD file that you can add your name to.
Cool.
And
have you actually reached out to actual COC working groups in the different projects?
No, not yet. So the status from the last couple of meetings was that the CPC wanted alignment on what problem it is that we're trying to solve. And that sort of problem statement / statement of work for this group. the CPC wanted to approve that, and we had wanted to get a group of people together to work from the CPC to work on that, and then go to the projects with that for to call for their participation. And that's my understanding of what we wanted to do, so that we did not confuse issues for project COC groups who are probably already very busy.
Yeah, and my understanding too is that this is kind of just to get the ball rolling, and that whoever raised their hands, you know, that's not a limited group. Like as we move forward and talk to more people, if they want to get involved, by all means, you know, I expect we'll start to reach out to more and more people as we get the ball rolling.
Yeah, just to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that you were being secretive about it. I was answering the point that there was not many people that had joined. So
yeah, appreciate it.
On that note, the HackMD document, which lists participants, has question marks next to the names of Miles Borins, James Snell, and Matteo Colina. Miles and Matteo, I think you're on the call. Would you like your names to be included or excluded from this participants list?
Of the moderation of the COC, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you can include me if you can include me. I don't know how much. I have one question that I haven't probably followed. How much do you plan to do a weekly call, or?
I have no idea because I just signed up for this one.
Yeah, it's okay. Fine.
I don't think it's been decided what makes sense. Like from my perspective, we want to get, I'd like to get us to the point where we say, what's the MVP, so that we can get something landed. And then I can see a longer set of discussions around what extensions make sense.
Okay, yeah, count me in. It's fine. It's count me in.
Okay, we've removed the question mark beside your name, so you're in.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I would say include me for right now, and then I will step down if I don't have time based on what it looks like.
essentially,
Yeah.
my approach, Miles.
And it may even be the sort of thing that people are kept in the loop to things as we develop them, and, can check PRs and not necessarily meetings and whatnot. We'll figure it out as we go.
So I'm also happy to join, but I'm probably going to see if there's someone from AMP that would be a better fit, if that's okay for you.
That'd be great. I would appreciate that. Cool. I'm one thing I'm thinking about is that I have a task to PR in admin policy docs, and one of them is around teams and working groups and such. Do we feel like before we kind of start to spin this up as a quote unquote team, we need to land those documents first and formalize this?
I wouldn't really want to block on that.
Okay.
Like for me, I think, given the discussion we've had today, we probably have enough people that we should at least figure out how we close on the scope of work.
Mm-hmm. Great. Should we throw together an ad hoc meeting, or do we think we can do it asynchronously, or what do we think are the next best steps for this?
There's something that's typed in there, so I guess it's like, does this group think that's good enough? If yes, then maybe we're good on the scope, right? If not, then maybe we need to get together to figure out how to move it forward, since it hasn't moved forward in the doc itself.
So I've missed the last couple of meetings. Is the COC the existing or the preceding pull request, is that now dead in the water, or is this about merging that and then continuing work from there, or what's the deal with that?
My perspective, personal perspective is, and it's what's written in the scope of work right now, is like, let's get agreement on the minimum viable COC process, which may or may not be what was in that PR. If it is, we can hopefully get it landed and then move forward. So I wouldn't say it's dead, but it's also, that's the first thing I think that's key to figure out, is like, is that the MVP and we're okay, or what do we need to change to it to make it the MVP?
My understanding earlier of the status was that the MVP version, the current one, did not have parts to it that people actually objected to. It was more about what else ought to be in it, which would indicate that I'm not sure that we have a disagreement on the current stage 2 or stage 3. Sorry, I don't remember what stage it's at. Proposal.
It was stage 3, yeah.
Yeah, that we could already accept that, then just have the extension part of the scope be left for the Code of Conduct Working Group, which admittedly, yes, might lead to them stepping back from some parts of the then existing COC.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought too, but I think it's getting to that agreement that what's there could land is the first bit.
But do we have actual disagreements on that?
I guess I'd ask from some of the other people who were in the discussions at the collaborator summit. Yeah, I can't speak for other people on that one.
Yeah, I'd have to go through it again and you know, to
okay, if we can't figure that out now, then it does mean that, yeah, this working group ought to figure that out and tell us whether.
So maybe it's that we can ask everybody who's on the working group to go back to the MVP if they actually think back to the PR and say, oh, this could be an MVP and plus one it if they think that's the case.
Mhm.
That's a good concrete first step.
That sounds good.
I'm adding that as a comment to the issue 432. Just, you know, is that pull request a viable MVP to get started? And I don't know if we should drop that into this MD doc as well. Just
It's probably worth making a note in the MD doc just in case.
Because right, I guess we closed on 413, which was the copy or not. So that was that it might need an update for, but other than that, it was just the other discussions, like, which I agree, at least in my opinion, were mostly could be treated as extensions.
yeah, I agree. I think it would be great to figure out what the MVP is, and you know, if this is it, great, let's land it. If there's things we need to tweak, then let's do it and then move forward. All right, cool. So I think the action items for us is to go back to that MVP and refresh ourselves, and you know, maybe we can have the conversation in either the PR or this issue and try to evaluate that and move forward. Great. So moving on, do we want to, anybody have any more thoughts or questions about this? All right. I'm going to move on to the next issue, which is 411. I think Brian suggested we take this off of the agenda, but you know, I feel like there's been some conversation here that we should discuss. I mean, I guess Brian's not on the call, and he commented an hour ago. Tierney has some, you know, I think valid questions. Is Tierney on the call? Yeah, Tierney, do you want to give us a summary of your thoughts here? Or?
Yeah, let me open up the issue real quick.
Yeah, it's in the chat too if anybody wants to jump into it. So this is the Foundation landscape that has been, you know, there's a version of it that is in a staging environment. I mean, I guess it looks kind of live, but here's the actual landscape, so you can take a look at it. There's been comments about accessibility and doesn't work with JavaScript turned off, and it's not clear to me how we maintain this, because I know when Fastify wasn't on there, somebody said, Dan said he would update that, but it's not clear to me how these are maintained in the other foundations, if it's just like pull requests and whatnot.
So,
I'm pretty, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I left 2 other large comments, and it looks like an hour ago Brian responded to my larger one, and I haven't had time to read the response, unfortunately. My main question is, I've not seen this as something that is like going to inherently add value to the project or to the foundation or to its projects in a way that doesn't already exist. And then on top of that, in that way that doesn't exist, if the thing that doesn't exist or that does exist already, if that isn't solving the problem it needs to solve, we should probably enhance that rather than duplicating the work and making it more complex. Additionally, I have some other critiques in there, like it just straight up doesn't work with JavaScript, which I don't personally think is something we should enable, but that's that's an aside. Additionally, my concern is that if this is being put into the OpenJS Foundation GitHub org, that the CPC will then have to maintain it. And I don't know if that's something that we have time to do. And like that's adding a burden to the CPC that was not like requested or asked for. And especially if it's like, I've personally not seen a lot of value being provided to the CPC or the foundation. So creating a burden without value is challenging for me. And if it's something that the foundation is going to be maintaining, I don't know why it would go in the GitHub org if it's something that they'd be deploying and maintaining themselves. So,
yeah, I don't know why the line has to be that hard in terms of who's maintaining it or not. But I think the idea is that mostly it maintains itself, other than when we have new projects joining, somebody's going to have to PR in that new project. But I don't think, like, if you look at the example, there a lot of that stuff isn't going to change all that often.
Fair. And that's totally fine, but it does add additional burden to the work that we're going to do. And one of the things that resonated with me early on in the CPC's creation is being very cautious about adding burden to the group we have and making sure we're protecting our time to ensure we can get the work we need to do done.
Right. So
that's
I guess
a lot of what I'm kind of identifying there.
I mean, I guess I would say if other people like the idea, then we could trust that they'll take that burden on, or I'm pretty sure Brian has mentioned that the foundation staff would handle like the member companies, that kind of thing.
Agreed.
If it doesn't get updated, we can drop it out, right?
Yeah, this is Robin. This is something that would be managed by our staff, and we do find it would be a nice marketing and development tool for us. So definitely it's something that we would maintain. We don't see it as a burden to CPC.
And so I guess that then creates a question of, for me at least, is the OpenJS Foundation GitHub org a space for marketing and kind of, that element.
It already is.
I'm not looking for an answer right now. I'm just saying that, yeah.
It already is with the artwork repo. Fundamentally, I at least have at no point thought that the GitHub org was in any way controlled by the CPC. To me, that's new thinking.
Okay.
Also, as a comment regarding the working with JavaScript, we are the OpenJS Foundation. I think if anyone can require that, we can, like literally.
Right. I also do think that it's valuable for us to identify the fact that they're like working with JavaScript doesn't mean just no script. It means people in areas that have less access. This loads like 3.6 megabytes of JavaScript before it paints. So less of it doesn't work at all with JavaScript, but it's enhanced by JavaScript is more of what I'm kind of poking at there, is that it literally does not load until the JavaScript is loaded, which like as the people, you know, as the OpenJS Foundation, perhaps not the best look is kind of what I'm getting at there of like, is that a best practice? Probably not. And it's probably not something any of us would ever advocate for.
All right, I understand what you mean. And yes, my comment was flippant. And it is possibly a little bit more flippancy on my part, but this sounds entirely like a marketing thing.
Cool. And if people are fine with that, it's fine. I'm just voicing concerns that I have with regard to this specific project. And yeah, I mean, if it's for marketing, that's fine. I've asked multiple times and that has never been the answer I've gotten. So that's it. That's totally fine then.
I think it's marketing and development.
What do you mean by development?
Biz dev.
Biz dev, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and like I said, you know, that was kind of the question I've had, and it hadn't gotten an answer. So.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, every README has an element of marketing, right? So.
Cool. So how do we want to move forward on this? Do we? I mean,
We'll take the feedback and we'll continue building it out.
I'll change my -1 to -0. I still am not particularly fond of the entire structure of this, but I'm not going to be a blocker anymore.
I appreciate you raising the concerns, though, Tierney. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, cool. I will jump to the next item on the agenda here. Time check, 12:43. Okay, great. Do we have anything we need to discuss in private session? I didn't really ask that to begin with, but I was unaware of anything. Cool.
I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, great. So I'll just keep on trucking. Pull request 386 is add post-graduation checklist. I think there were some questions about, yeah, scrolling down, there's conflicts in the PR just because some of the things have actually moved. But does anybody have any? I guess I should have maybe pulled this up when Toby was on. I forgot that this was
I think that one, like when I last looked at it, it needs that update, but it also needs more approvals. And then we can take it to the board, but it really needed them. Last time I looked at it, the main thing in my mind was like people saying like we need, as per governance, I think we need 50% of our voting members, is it? Let's see, what did I say in the last one?
Is that because
one half the voting members need to approve?
And why is that again? Just so we're clear.
Because it's the way we've got our governance, like our governance / charter written. We believe it's falls under the wording in terms of an update to that.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so we need more eyeballs and thumbs on.
Yeah,
on
we
this.
basically have one now, and we need half of the voting members.
Okay. Yeah, and that gets harder when some of the voting members aren't active. All right, great. So you know, I can send an email out to the group to get more thumbs on this. Looks like Mike just approved. Thank you, Mike Samuel. Yeah, I'll take this as an action item to try and get some more voting thumbs on it. Just make a quick note.
Here, I'll take the note for you on that.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Let's see. All right, great. Where are we? So the next one is the COC proposal, the stage 3. I'm not sure we need to dive into that since we kind of discussed the COC team earlier. You know, if anybody, as the notes are being typed as I'm reading them, I encourage folks to take a look and, you know, see if there's anything in there that you don't think, if you have any objections to or what have you in terms of an MVP for that. Clarify travel fund status and process. I think, did we touch on that already?
I think it's that one can close. Toby or Emily mentioned that one.
Yeah, I mentioned that we don't have to consider that now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Responsible security disclosures. This is issue 326. Marcin, I'm not sure how you say that, from the Node security working group spun something up, and now we're looking at how to apply this to the wider OpenJS landscape of projects. He's done some preliminary work to see what other folks have in terms of security procedures. And he and Michael and I are going to connect perhaps before Michael goes on vacation, and you know, see how we can move this forward and bring something to the CPC to discuss and move forward on.
Could I be part of that when you connect?
Yeah, absolutely. That was Tierney?
That was Mike Samuel.
Oh, Mike, there you go. Thank you. Excellent. So yeah, does that sound accurate, Michael? And do you think that we'll have time to meet before the end of the week? I think you're leaving soon, right?
Yep. Yeah, that sounds accurate.
Okay. All right, great. So we'll try to have progress on this. Let's see here. The post bootstrap work. Does anybody have anything? Go ahead.
None of that, but it's not on the agenda. But 418 is the pull request for updating the COC from contributor covenant 1.4 to 2.0. Was interested, there's like 8 approvals for that. Can we just merge that, or is there something that ought to happen there? Can we just update our COC like that? Or should we process it properly here? I'm going to need to miss next week myself, so I figured I'd ask now.
That probably is not part of our charter, but maybe part of our governance? And I'm just looking for the governance requirements. Landing, so governance. So sorry, approving. So changing the governments need to be open. They need to have two approvals by CPC members and no objections and be open for 14 days. So has that one been open? It's been more than 14 days. So
yeah.
I would say that if we agree that it's a governance and not charter, then we can land it at this point.
Yeah, I have no objections.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate you bringing that up. Cool. All right. So the next item is the post bootstrap work. I'll drop the link to the actual project board in the chat. Probably touch on this briefly. The add admin policy docs, as I've mentioned, there's a PR that's open. I think one of the 3 remaining docs is ready, but the other 2 I'm still needing to convert from Node.js to OpenJS, and then can open that PR up for comments and move that along. Chris was not able to make the meeting today, Chris Borchers, but he did say, and I'll read the comment here, he set up the repo to test the easy CLA process a bit, confirmed that one signature will work for all OpenJS projects that use the EC CLA. You can see that on the test easy CLA project, and I will drop a link to this comment into the chat for folks who want to see where I'm reading from. Just keep in mind that this is the live CLA, so only complete the signing process if you're actually agreeing to the CLA. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, that will close issue 124 with regards to getting the CLA stuff set up for the new foundation. Cool. So I will maybe go back to that and drop in a comment and close it after the meeting. And then the other item on this board that is remaining is the project directed funding. I'm not sure if there's really any sort of an update on this or where we're at. It's been open for a long time. Anything new there, board folks? No?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? I was looking at something else.
Sure. No, this is around project directed funding, which I know has been an ongoing conversation, but, you know, in a variety of ways at the board level.
There has been some movement, but nothing that has been that I can share at this time, unfortunately.
Fair. All right. So that's it from that board, which hopefully we'll actually have that board closed out soon. Maybe even just pull those issues out of the board and just throw them on the agenda. But we have 8 minutes. The last item here is chartering the standards team, which is issue 58 in the standards group here. I think that, thanks, Michael. Michael's dropping off, but I wasn't at the last meeting, I think. But I do have a comment that I'm working on those admin docs. Do we have any sort of an update here for chartering the standards team? We have the meeting in an hour.
Yeah, I can chime in here really quickly. Like, the group itself still needs to discuss these things, as we will do in the next hour. I guess like the high level question to the CPC would be like, how do CPC folks feel about the idea of chartering the standards group, specifically kind of making the standards group the official owners of the OpenJS's engagement and standards organizations, where I think this is particularly important for that organization, for that group, is that if we want to be engaging in standards organizations, if we want to be working with them, we need to be able to say like, so-and-so that's attending is a delegate and representative. And I think that it would be really inefficient if every time we want to do that, the standards group has to kind of come to the CPC and ask for permission. Now, I think there's certain things that will still involve, you know, working with the CPC, like the OSI membership, for example, was one of those things that, you know, I don't think the standards org can independently make a decision like that. But if the CPC approves, which it did, and the board approves, and we move forward with that, then making the decision of like, who would be the OSI rep would be something that I think would be reasonable for the standards organization to be able to make independently. Does anyone have concerns with that at a high level?
No.
So I think with that in mind, then like the other really high level bit that to just kind of put in people's heads, and we don't need to make any decisions right now, is like this kind of concept of having working groups that are chartered by leadership to oversee and own particular parts of the operations of the foundation. You know, is something that the Node.js project has traditionally done. We have kind of done this with how we charter projects, but it's a very different thing. So, you know, the high level thing for people to think on is like, are we good with the idea of spinning up these kind of project agnostic projects, or software project agnostic initiatives is maybe a better way to put it, within the foundation that have autonomy. I personally think that it's good and it's healthy, and it will help our foundation continue to build, be more productive, maybe be more meaningful to different folks. Not everyone, for example, is interested in the governance work that we do in the CPC, but maybe interested in the standards work, or moderation will be another example of something that I think may require similar, a similar level of chartering. So, you know, no decisions to make right now, but would very much like folks to think about it, be aware of it. And I think over at the standards group, we'll kind of discuss next steps of putting together a charter, likely based on how the Node.js project does it. And hopefully for a future meeting, we'll be able to make a more formal presentation for approval of the CPC.
That's great. Yeah, we have the meeting in an hour. We can work on this further. Software, what was it? Software
Project Agnostic Initiative.
There you go, SPAI. I dropped in a link to the pull request where I am moving some admin policy docs from Node over to the OpenJS org. Note that some of them have not been updated yet, and that's why it's the do not merge. But if you wanted to read more about how we've worked on this in the Node project in the past and continue to, there are some documents there that you can take a peek at. Great. Any more on that issue or any other issues as we near the top of the hour? No? Cool. Well, yeah, I'll give you back 2.5 minutes. And thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.